Most people see success from the outside. They see the title, the office, the authority. What they don't see is the work. Welcome to Built, Not Wished. This podcast is about how real lives are constructed. Not imagined, not manifested, not wished into existence, but built through effort, discipline, mistakes, and time. Today's guest holds the title Vice President of Operations, but that's not where this conversation is about. We're not here for executive jargon or polished sound bites. We're here for the road. The early jobs, the awkward seasons, the lessons that only show up when you're tired and unsure, but keep showing up anyway. This is a conversation about becoming, about work no one claps for, about how leadership is forged, not granted. So let's talk about how it really built. Well, hello, Paul.
Good afternoon.
I have Paul Alea here. And full disclosure, Paul and I have known each other for a while. Paul is my boss. And obviously, we work together. And I have the luxury of having you here to kind of pick your brain about the early years.
All right. Not too much meat on the bone there, but humbled to be here. Humbled and proud to be here.
Yeah, no, this will be good. This will be good. Like I said, I know we've worked together for years, and good stuff's happened, bad stuff's happened, right? I mean, we've kind of lived through a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
And I've told you a little bit about this podcast, what I'm trying to do. And I was just having a conversation with you and about, you've heard this phrase, when somebody gets something, they just get it, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean it's something technical. And it's hard to define that term about someone gets it.
It's almost like you understand it. It's almost like a translation of a language. You get it, but when you finally can really interpret meaning or you understand it and you don't need someone to explain it anymore. And from there, you can kind of extrapolate your actions, your behavior, set forward from it. It's not just a one-off. It's a multi-directional, multifaceted, because this 7 other connections, parts of the constellation, tie together. Right. Yeah, and you see the holistic picture. Yeah,
and that's the thing about leadership, about constructing a life worth living, so to speak, is how do we get it? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And can that be taught versus are there just people that have the nature that they get it? I mean, that's a tough question.
It's everybody loves some form of entertainment, right? And they talk about the it factor, right?
Yes.
Whether that's a charisma or that's an innate skill or aptitude. But I think, like you said, do you get it? I think most people don't. There's the whole concept of, are leaders born or are they bred? Right. And I think that I think more often than not, probably people that are bred to be leaders are misconceived as born. And I think that there is a lot of work to be done. And I think that it's just like most workplaces. It's not the one thing. It's the environment that you create that allows things to happen. And so I believe in that concept of that. Right. It's not a specific, I'm very good at speaking, or I'm very good at particular technical skill, I'm very good at programming or something. That's all part of the picture, and that can help things, help your career and your journey. But I think it's the environment that's created, or you create for yourself, that allows, certain gaps to be filled. So I think it's the environment that you create or is created.
Because I've always said, I've thought leadership for many years was taught. And the reason being is and I would talk out of both sides of my mouth, because on one hand I say I think it's a trait that can be taught. However, I will also say that there are people that have received no training in leadership, but they're kind of natural leaders.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I could point to, here in the United States, we have military academies.
Mm-hmm.
They produce leaders. Some of those leaders are my heroes. Some of my, is everyone that comes out of those military academies like, Ulysses S. Grant or General Armstrong or General Patton? No, they're not. So,
I want to take a step back, because you said something made me think of it, is that there are certain leadership principles that I think that absolutely, most people, some people do get it. I think it's a small percentage, but there's leadership principles that are learned over time, or that are just historical truths.
Right.
Going back thousands of years,
yes.
Biblical, historic, Gresham, whatever. So I do think there are principles to be learned.
Sure.
Absolutely. And I think that in time, the right person learning those will add that to their repertoire and kind of think introspectively about that, and think how they can, if it makes sense to them, if it they identify with that, if that means something to them, they kind of expand to incorporate that. I think that's absolutely true. Absolutely.
So let's back up a little bit. I probably should have done this earlier, because I'm new at this.
Yeah, I'm newer.
Let's give a little of your background, a little bit of your bio. All right, you're Paul Alea. You take it from there.
Sure. So, I thought I grew up pretty plain, downstate New York. Obviously, as I grew older, I realized, the values that I was, seeing and living through with my parents and my family, and obviously how fortunate and blessed I was and am. But my mother was a schooled nurse, not
Yes.
like went to, like nowadays you go to like college,
Sure.
and you get a nursing degree. I went to a nursing school, and it was like 3 years, and it was this is a nurse school. It wasn't like a degree in nursing. So it was like a year of like academics, and like I think maybe like 2 years of actual like treating patients. And so she was a nurse.
I kind of wish they'd bring that back, but anyway.
For like 45 years. And my father, I think he ended up getting an associate's degree at night.
Okay.
And funny story, I think at one point he went to some schooling. He took some night classes, because he's from, like Patterson, Garfield, New Jersey area. And the movie,
really, I did not know that. Okay.
Oh yeah, the movie.
I hate to say that. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. It's
But
a conversation.
That makes the pictures I've seen of him even more apropos.
Oh yeah, it's like Reese. Yeah, him and my mother were both born 2 days apart in the same hospital. Didn't meet till they were, I think, 20. And he was a greaser. Rolled up cigarettes in his sleeve, and he did open the door for my mom the first day. He reached across the door and threw it open. So, but he actually took some night school classes at East Side High, from one of my favorite movies, Lean on Me, with Morgan Freeman.
Right.
So at school back in before it got to be, So I grew up in downstate New York, because my parents had moved to Danbury, Connecticut, and then into New York, downstate New York. And so my dad, kind of, and not odd jobs, like he worked professional jobs eventually.
Sure.
And I know that my mom's uncle had gotten him a job with IBM. And so he worked at IBM as like a data analyst and like backup disaster recovery, things like that.
Okay.
And so, my mom worked, whether it was second shift or third shift or whatever, she worked for a nurse's hospitals, and then eventually like a medical center, like a medical care building, you know what I mean? So like a doctor's, a lot of times the hospital. So a lot of times we didn't see, mom was the favorite. We got to see mom. It was always like, dad's taking care of us after school, and we'd see mom, coming home. Yeah. So they're all excited. He's like, well, what am I? Chopped liver? You know what I mean? Because we always see dad. But, my dad always said his goal in life was to make in salary what his age was. And by the time he was nearing retirement in his mid to late 60s, he finally earned it.
Isn't that something?
So, I mean, that was his goal, and he did it, and they were able to raise a family. It's 2026 now, so, raising a family of 5 in downstate New York, you can also imagine, too, in your mid to late 60s, if you do the math, what that is in thousands of dollars.
Correct.
Is not necessarily upper middle class anymore.
Not
it really
close.
wasn't then either. It was probably good middle class.
Sure.
But that's where that came from. Neither one of them had a 4-year degree.
Okay.
So, and then I had 2 older siblings. My oldest one is my brother, 9 years older. He's adopted from La Paz, Bolivia. So my parents in the 70s went down to Bolivia to adopt him. So they've got stories of going into Bolivia in the 70s to adopt a child from basically like a nunnery or a you know what I mean? So it was interesting stories. If you do the research of what Bolivia was like in the early 70s, probably not a lot different than some of the other South American countries now.
Right.
A lot of coup d'etats and stuff like that. And so their trip even got cut short because of government unrest, civil unrest and government overthrows. So
yeah.
So that's the kind of background. I got an older sister. Both my sister and I are both born to my parents. My older brother was adopted. And so, all 3 of us went to Catholic school until we were at least in 5th grade. I think my brother went all through high school. My sister went all through like middle school. And by the time I went through elementary school.
Sure.
So there's always that. I mean, I think at least for me was that sibling rivalry. Like I always wanted to be good at sports as my brother and knowledgeable at sports and music as my brother, as good at academics as my sister. So it was always kind of and myself, it was always that way, but I always looked up to both. I still do today. I've told them that. So, but I remember when I got my license, 16.
Sure.
And even as a kid, I always wanted to do chores and earn money so I could, buy a toy or whatever I wanted. Right.
Right.
And it was funny. My dad always encouraged. My mom was always like, "No, if you want something, we'll just get it for you. Just But we'll in reason, right? But we'll talk about it. Maybe wait.
Right.
But I guess I wanted responsibility without realizing it. But or at least I wanted to be able to earn money. So
and
I could
wanted
buy some.
money.
And I wanted money, yeah.
Right.
And so when I was 16 and I could drive, it wasn't really the time. It wasn't really the way I lived. It's like you go ride your bike to a job. Like I know there's a lot of time periods you could do that, but I mean, it wasn't like a lot of paper routes around where I was at, at the time. Right. So I mean, it was anything. I mean, they could hire a 16-year-old girl into work with no experience, for, I think it was minimum wage. I want to say it was like $4.75 an hour back then.
Okay.
But maybe just getting over 5.10, 5.05. I think it was just under 5, but yeah, so working at a Chuck E. Cheese as a kitchen, prepping the food, making the food, plating the food, cleaning all the dishes, a lot of times running the whole kitchen by myself at 16 with birthday parties. And I hated it. I hated it. Yeah. I hated it. But,
and that's interesting. Because I did not know that. So then is that where, because I know you are a pretty inspiring cook.
I like to cook. So when I was in college and undergrad, so our senior year, we kind of did the math, and so we realized that, when you get room and board in college, you live in a dorm that's probably the same size as this office that we're in, spacious office, small for like 20-year-olds living together.
Correct.
With beds and desks and all that. And you could spend less money renting an apartment with a kitchen or a kitchenette, a living space, and a couple of bedrooms in upstate New York. And then, you'd have to buy your own groceries, but you were spending less money than what the college was charging us. So we started to cook a little bit in college, and we tried, you know what I mean? But you
mean more than mac and cheese?
More than mac and cheese. Looking back on it, was like, I'm making penne alla vodka. And I'm taking ragu with like Alfredo. I'm just mixing that. You know what I mean? It's like, it's pink sauce now. Yeah. So, But at least you can kind of control your own food there. But no, a little bit. But I would say that I was previously married legally through the church, annulled. So 2 weddings, 1 marriage is what I say.
There you go.
So,
there
but just I don't know, just a lot of time on my own, and just with the advent of YouTube, and it just I don't know what happened. I just kind of picked it up, and just like my Microsoft Excel skills, just online YouTubing it, and just teaching myself, and just finding out it's fun.
So wait a second, and I did want to.
So I know family recipes. Not one thing I cook is a family recipe.
Really?
Yeah, it's everything that's found online, or I just messing around with it myself.
I want to go back to Excel for just a minute, because I've always kind of looked at you as you're my mentor for Excel, right? College.
Mm-hmm. Not one
Excel class in college.
Nope. Barely even used it. When I got my first job out of college, making roughly $23,000 a year in IT.
Okay.
So $23,000 a year
in New York,
upstate New York, the capital.
Okay.
Governor Pataki, I believe, was the governor at the time. Yeah, a few miles from the governor's mansion, and I remember going sitting in like a financial review of a small little IT firm, and they had Excel up there showing different things and spending profits and sales and all that kind of stuff like that, and they're doing this weird stuff which I later figured out were called formulas.
Okay.
Summing things up. I'm like, oh, cool, because I just thought you typed every number in.
Right.
Every
so
cell.
Did I did
yeah,
too.
So that's 22. That's my first time I'm seeing Excel. Like, oh, that's cool. Weird stuff you can do. And then
right.
It wasn't even that job I even started to learn. It was the next job I had where we had to scrub customer data for inputs into a mass communication software. Okay. So like it would communicate. It was after 9/11. It was born out of 9/11, the tragedy, about how to communicate with employees or a group of people. It could be thousands of people. It could be hundreds of employees. And it was through emails, home phones, mobile phones, pagers. But it was all that information, all that contact data, but you had to scrub it because it had to be in a very clean, specific, rigid format to upload into the software so that this software could then send text information and also make phone call communications, but you had to clean the data. So that's really started to learn quite a bit of shortcuts and scrubbing. And
so, but you really learned, did I hear you say that you really learned the Excel skills through YouTube?
Oh yeah. YouTube or just Googling how to do something. Okay. I mean, I remember, my one job, when I got into manufacturing.
What year roughly are we talking?
So I would have graduated undergrad in 2004. So the job I was just speaking of was probably 2006, and then 2008 or 9 is when I actually got into a company. I wasn't directly in manufacturing, but I was for a manufacturing company, and that's when my boss at the time, who was pretty good at all that stuff, gave me a book on. It was like I don't know if it was a dummies guide or the pivot tables for dummies. I think it was pivot table for dummies, and another pivot table. I was like, learn that, and I was like, and I hated them. I absolutely hated pivot tables.
I still hate pivot tables.
I love them now. It's I don't know how it happened. It's just I try to convert people, but I was like, what am I doing with this? So yeah.
But that's a valuable tool that you're talking about here. So what you're telling me is, you identified, and now I'm putting my own spin on this, so please, so I'm just asking for clarification. So you identified a need that you had in your job. Then you identified a source for you to be able to learn to get better at it. And of course, I know you, and it didn't cost anything, so it was YouTube.
And back then, YouTube was more like cat videos and stuff like that. So it was probably more Google and just or the search engines weren't necessarily Google. It was probably Google. It was probably Dogpile, Netscape, Navigator searches. You know what I mean? This is probably dating yourself. Just beyond Prodigy Classic. Whatever the internet search engine was at the time. Google was around, but it was kind of new. But so whatever, just on the internet and books. paper books and, trying
Oh,
to follow
my
step by
gosh.
step,
A
which,
paper
a
book.
paper book following on Excel and pivot tables was a nightmare, textbook style.
Certainly.
So, but YouTube came later for more of the sophisticated stuff. But yeah, just trying, trial and error, but then it was always for a purpose, because it doesn't just help. Oh, can I make a pivot table? It was always, I was learning that because I needed to get to some end, some means, and
I
so
know,
I was
right,
like, how
right.
can I more easily, quickly, more accurately
Do this.
Yeah, because I was trying to analyze data back then, whether it was contact data for the customers, the clients, if it was analyzing logistics data and freight costs and lanes and things like that, and just trying to do statistical analysis.
So where did, in your early years, where did it click? And I'm going to say click, or you got it, or was it always there, about that taught you, how hard work actually is?
So, I never
was it Chuck E. Cheese?
Yeah, that was pretty rough. I mean, I always joke
know,
around
yeah.
at 3 weeks in, it's whatever, 16 and I don't know, 9 months, whatever it was, but 3 weeks in, I called myself the head chef on shift, because head cook, because everyone else quit or got fired. So it was me in the kitchen.
Right.
While there was maybe a bunch of people on the floor because it was birthdays and whatever, serving and all that. Now I didn't get any tips. Everyone else got paid more and got tips. But I'm just in that whole kitchen, professional kitchen, with the steamer, falling behind on dishes and stuff, and stuff like.
You mean an absolute one-man show?
One-man show. Like they prepped the the pizza dough in the morning, but I mean it was getting the orders, making them, cooking them, serving, plating them, getting them out, getting the dishes back in, cleaning them, just the whole cycle. So that's why I say it kind of sucked by
Chuck
3
E.
weeks.
Cheese operates lean, huh?
Oh yeah, a little lean. Yes, great management. So, no, how hard work? I guess I always I understood it to do that. I guess from like my dad. My mom's job was
you had some examples.
Had
You
some
lived with
examples, yeah,
examples, right?
And just with school, because I was like, I think the Catholic school education, it was a challenge. You had to work hard, and I did very well academically, which I think helped. And I think years over time, it started to degrade over time, because I think my discipline kind of lacked. But even in high school, it was honors and then advanced placement AP and stuff like that, and college and stuff like that and so forth. But it's not like I had to do it's not like I was pouring concrete, like a lot of people, like physically hard work.
Sure.
But putting in the effort, whatever it was, I guess was instilled in me, and I guess I took that from academics. But there was certainly to be more testing as I moved into different careers.
Well, and that's great. And so when did you first realize I might be a leader? I might be able to lead people.
So when I started doing the CI stuff, the continuous improvement stuff, I hate to say the word stuff. It makes it sound trivial, because today I'm obviously a big proponent of it. Obviously with you, not to the listening audience, but but my first manufacturing company, I really enjoyed it. It was exhilarating. It was fun. It meant so much to me. I really enjoyed it, and it got this. And part of that training was how to maybe not lead people in a job, but like lead through events.
Sure.
Participation in some kind of improvement events. Getting people's input for some sort of benefit, process-wise, product-wise. But, I did that, and then I kind of got into a supervisor role, and I enjoyed it. I don't think I excelled at it at that time by any means. I left and went to a competitor of the company I was working for at the time in the aluminum industry, and I went as a continuous improvement manager. So a bit more leadership required, but when I got in as an operations manager and had to take my background in continuous improvement, my light background in supervision, and had to manage the shop floor operations and it was melting and casting aluminum. So now you've got kind of a pretty potentially dangerous environment,
Absolutely.
you know, and that's grueling work with long hours. So you had to put in the time. I mean, you didn't have to, but I felt like I needed to build rapport, build respect, and to make sure I could be the commander with people that have already been there.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like I definitely put the time in there, and I thought I did very well.
Mm-hmm.
Not very well. But then when I got transferred to another facility, I struggled at first, and that was down in central Indiana, working with you, for you, in fact. I feel like that was that was in my 30s at that point now.
Right.
I feel like then, okay, I think I can make it. I think I can make a change for the better. I don't want to call myself a change agent, but I mean, like, I can influence people and not just take the helm and not screw it up, but I can actually like be a positive influence.
Correct. And positive impact.
Positive impact. Yes. Direct impact, not influence, right? Impact. That's probably, I would say, either the prior role when I finally got into it, or that role when I finally hit my stride 6-7 months into that role, was probably like, okay, I can do something here.
Absolutely.
I think I know what I'm doing.
And I've seen this. And that's what I find interesting.
But that was damn near 10 years into my manufacturing company experience.
Right,
yeah.
right. But the thing I'm thinking about is I considered Paul almost robotic from the standpoint of you were there every time I arrived. You were there every time I left. And I normally pride myself on nobody's going to outwork me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I will say you absolutely outworked me.
I don't know.
Where does that come from?
I'm trying to think where I heard that from. I probably, now we're going back a little bit, and I don't know where it came from, but I just knew that somehow it was stuck in my mind. And, there's not a lot of people that do, I shouldn't say not a lot, not everybody does this, but I felt I had to be there before my boss and after my boss left in that type of role. And I don't know where I got that from. I just knew it. And I could almost hear somebody telling me in my head every day, I had to beat you there to work, already know, the situation. And when you'd have your your situation report, when you showed up, whether that was 6:30 or 7 or 7:12, I wanted to be there to have the layout of what happened the night before, where we're at so far, and where we headed for the day. And that could be by, 6:45, 7 o'clock in the morning before you got there. I felt like that I needed to have. And I mean, sometimes I was just hanging out. I was like, I'm not leaving until his car's out of that parking lot. So if you ever came back, went down the corner to get an iced tea and a pack of cigarettes and came back, I would have known. But there were some days it was like, okay, he's gone. I'm leaving in 5 minutes here. You know what I mean? But I don't know what it was. It was just this innate, like, you could not beat me there, and I couldn't leave. I could not leave before you.
Yeah, so. Eventually, we need to talk about something that. And I'm going to be blunt on this podcast because I can. There's something about mind fuckery, all right? Because you don't know where you heard that, but now it's in your mind, and you lived it for years. You lived that. And I was just curious where that came from. I'm going to shift gears for just a second. What's something you were bad at early in your career that you had to deliberately build? Don't tell me pivot tables.
No. It's so hard to narrow it down to one thing. I think it's the biggest challenge. So I can think of situations here. I think that impressing my assessment of something or a situation before grasping the whole situation or the room, or getting other people's feedback, or just, here's how I see it, this is what I think. Doing that first as opposed to grasping.
Okay. I see
You
what you're
know,
saying.
or just immediately stating how I saw things, as opposed to being open to hear. And again, and this is what I knowingly struggle with this today. Of I'm going to share what I'm thinking, as opposed to allowing others to share, and it has nothing to do with hierarchy. I mean, this could be peers.
Right.
I think it almost goes back to the classroom days of, I got the answer first.
Right.
So I think that early on in my career, and I mean, there's a lot of different careers we just discussed right there.
Sure. Right.
So maybe I'll limit that more to the either manufacturing in leadership or both. But I know I struggled with that, is to speak more than I listened and to assess on my own rather than gather input.
No, that's valuable. That's valuable. You're right. And I think back to, and same thing right now, I go back a few more years than you. And I always thought I had to be a badass.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
In my mind, as the quote unquote, I don't care if I was a supervisor or the general foreman or whatever, I always thought I had to be the badass. And the truth of the matter is, that's a complete fallacy, and it's really poor management. All right.
It might have been good management back in the day, but it wasn't good leadership.
Correct.
Because as far apart as we are in our timelines, I still feel like it wasn't far enough apart that I feel like that when we started crossing paths, you and I, like, probably 80 to 90% had an overlap of what we thought what a good manager looked like and what it took. And it did.
Right.
But I think that has changed, or had been changing, and we just didn't recognize it, or changed other areas that we weren't working in. And
correct. Yeah. And that's those rookie mistakes. I call them rookie mistakes.
Coming in first day on the shift, third shift, telling this, telling that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I'll never forget the guy's name. I won't repeat it here, but he was kind of the lead, and he kind of pulled me aside and said, listen, you're on the rotation as a supervisor. We're working together every day. We rotate too, but it's on a different schedule. I said, I got it. Do your job. Step in when we need to. We'll come to you when we need help. We need to get clearance of something. But he's like, we know what to do. We got it. Just let me handle this. You don't need to come in and tell us what to do. We've already been doing it. And he was absolutely right.
Right. And that's a common, and I've read this for the last 30 years, right? Managers, supervisor, whatever your role is, they come in, and because of the title, they think I have to make a change, which is absolutely wrong, right? Because do you even know what to change at that moment? And there's this innate desire. I felt it. I personally felt it. I know it. I've got to change this. I've got to change something.
Show the impact that you were hired for.
Yeah, I'm the guy, right?
Change catalyst.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's, I want to say the one book I read, I think it was The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, but, it's, and that's just one example, right? And you can subscribe to the things they teach or not, right? I happen to think they're good, right? But it's almost like the higher the role, almost the longer you have to step back and assess the dynamics of the team and the sub teams and assess what's going on before you want to make any big changes.
Correct.
Because you got to understand the culture that you're walking into. Because, it doesn't matter. You could be a great leader in this place with one culture and fail in another. I mean, that's why you have, that's no different why you have certain quarterbacks or wide receivers or coaches, excel in one, club team and fail in another. It's just
different cultures.
Same game, though.
Correct.
Same game.
Definitely different cultures. So let me ask you this. Was there ever a season where you almost stalled out or failed because you hadn't yet built the habits you needed?
Well, it's funny you say that because I feel like I don't think I was always this way, but maybe I always was. But although I'm driven, I feel like my nature is lazy.
Really?
Yes, I find myself lazy.
Really?
And I find myself with lacking discipline that I wish I had. Honestly. And so
I think that might be something that might fuckery.
it might be, yeah. Or just, if you work certain things and it's the irony is too is that when you don't have a standard day to day, it's almost like you plan a few things.
It's challenging.
Yeah, you feel it, but that's even when it's even more important to have that discipline.
Correct.
And I recognize that, but I struggle with that at the same time. Is I think in those days, like you talked about, show up at the end. I mean, it was almost like there was so much time that it was a little bit easier to run the discipline. I had somebody who used to work, actually was, and he'll be the first to admit I was never the smartest guy in the room. In fact, I was often not the smartest guy in the room and didn't want to be. But he was like, I would show up first. I would, be there 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is. And I come in Sarah's like, I would work more than anybody else.
Right.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger will say it. I think Thomas Jefferson always says, get up early because you have the time.
Correct.
And it can kind of, it's not like throwing money at a solution, but you can throw time or the problem, but you can throw time at a problem. That's like, I had the discipline. I could develop discipline and habits because I'd be getting to work at 5:30 to 5:45 in the morning and leaving at, 5:30 at night. So I had, 12 to 13 hours sometimes to play with where, I had a day structure, but I had a lot of non-structure time and I could fill in the gaps.
Sure.
So I think there was probably times in manufacturing because I was working those long hours. And I didn't have a family at the time, so it was relatively easy. But, you get burned out working.
Exactly.
You never
right.
turn your mind off because, the operations we were working in was 24/7. So you always had to be concerned about what was going on at the plant.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't recall a time because I just think it was, I did it so early of constantly thinking there's a 24/7 operation. So burnt out, yes. Burnt out for a lack of habits, that I don't know. Although as I get, as I'm getting older and different roles and I see different responsibilities, I see the habits changing. It's not so much the work habits, it's the health and balance habits of sleep and diet and not exercise like I'm going to the gym in college. It's exercise and working out to make sure that I'm not getting injured and I've got, good health and everything else like that so that I can put forth, whether it's at my family, but at my job, like I'm focused and I'm not foggy and I'm not worn out. It's that type of habit.
I agree.
So I could probably say that now I'm getting there. You know what I mean? And so but it's a big shift, but just for work, I can't recall any.
Can you think of, or can you give up, what did you have to give up to become the leader you are today?
So
Is there something,
I was very fortunate because, I'm in my mid 40s and we have a 3-year-old.
Yes.
And so, and most people would have the same situation 20 years ago.
Correct.
So they're having to, a much different financial situation.
Yes.
Not that I'm independent wealthy. I'm just saying, but in your early 20s, first, second job versus
correct
15 years in an industry, you're in a different financial situation, different type of job requirements. You certainly don't have necessarily the energy, or as I sit here with recovering from a knee surgery, you certainly don't have the body anymore, but that type of worry. And then, and you've told me stories, you've got to work these oddball shifts.
Right.
And you've got a family. So, on the one hand, I consider myself fortunate, and blessed that I still have to have a family in my 40s. start one, but like I never had to make those sacrifices.
Sure.
The sacrifices I did have to make, though, was time. I did work a lot of hours.
Yes, you did.
And like today, I'll work a lot of hours, but it could be in a lot of different locations. It could be at a hotel, the office, home, on the road, whatever. But back then, a lot of the hours was at the plant.
Physically in the plant.
In the plant, yeah.
Because different roles require different
things.
Correct.
And different requirements and needs. And then even afterwards, you go home and you're still taking phone calls till midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Correct.
And you still got to get up at 4 in the morning to get to work.
Correct.
So there was that. And I tell people that, I'm ready to look to potentially move here shortly here, but I haven't moved in like 8 years. Other than growing up in my house, my childhood home, I've never lived anywhere this long. It's probably twice as long as I've lived anywhere. So I guess the other sacrifices I made in my 20s and 30s were, I discovered what an arms mortgage was because I never lived anywhere more than like 18 months, 2 years.
Sure.
So
that's giving up.
It's pretty stressful to go from, New York to Ohio to Georgia to New York to, Indiana to Michigan to, just keep hanging around.
Right.
And most of those were all relocations within the same company. Now, they go to one company and then I go to another company with 2 or 3 more times. So it wasn't like I was just switching jobs indiscriminately.
Right.
But it was to advance and to learn and to get different skills. And what the company, what I wanted to pursue in my career and what the company said, this would help you. And I would say, I'll volunteer, I'll go do it. So that was the sacrifices, I would say.
Sure, absolutely.
And then time, too.
It's a big one.
It's a big one because I didn't work a professional career in undergrad. I worked. And it was tough, going to school for my degree and then working a sports store job, even sporting goods store job. But even when I got my first job in manufacturing as like a business analyst, right, supply chain, I went back to school to a pretty good school in Ohio to get my master's.
Not Ohio State.
What's that? No, it was Case Western Reserve University. No,
Thank you.
No, Case Weatherhead School of Business. So that was tough. And I went to get done faster. I went year round. So I went, fall, spring, summer, 2 summer sessions. I think there was like an over the winter session. So it was like year round for 18 months. And then, the continued education of either programs, not necessarily degrees I've taken now, as you know about.
Right.
That's a lot of time commitment, after work, before work, on the weekends. And so I guess there's time there to further educate myself to try to benefit.
So let me get this right. You're a vice president of operations, and you're taking classes now still.
Just finished, and I always look for the next thing. But yeah, it took about a year program online, but a 15-month program through MIT, trying to see what was, it was a very interesting class program, for operations officers. And it was, it's just about AI and the digital supply chain and organizational structure and stuff that, I probably was some of the concepts introduced to 20 years ago. Where are we at today? And then obviously the technology that's come across in 20 years and how they really overlap. It's not just technology, it's technology in business, and it's technology in business in manufacturing and innovation. So how I can bring that to where I work today.
Okay, let me reel this back off of the executives for a minute.
Yeah.
Can you recall a time in your life when someone told you the truth when it would have been easier to flatter you or lie to you? And what did that change? In other words, we've had these conversations before about hard conversations.
Right.
You've had to have hard conversations. I've had to have hard conversations. We've had to be the instigator of hard conversations. And I guess that's really what I was thinking about, trying to get to that.
So I remember getting frustrated when I worked in first company manufacturing. Great boss, treated me well, gave me a lot of latitude. But my year review was just keep working hard, show leadership, step up. Year after year, 2, 3, 4 years, and I was like, I wasn't going anywhere. I'm like, I can't do anything with that.
Yeah, that's not very.
So that's when I kind of realized I got to forge my own path. I got to go seek something. So that was not the situation. or somebody could have told me. It's kind of a getting out of it, really. And that's why my reviews today are part of that factors in of like, I will not do that to somebody.
Correct.
So I remember a boss telling me that I won't go into too many details. I've gotten over it, but a position I wanted to apply for that I wasn't ready and wasn't going to get it. Now, I don't know the motivation behind it. He probably was right. I don't know if he was right, but it was just, you're not going to get it. Don't bother.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was necessarily the truth or just, like with the kind of conversation you're looking for. What could have just been easier to give it a shot. Maybe it was. Maybe I didn't recognize it all these years later. It was just trying to be honest with me. But there's still something in trying and getting the experience.
I would agree because in my mind, there's a difference between being truthful and being deflating.
Deflating, yeah. I took it as deflating, and
I can understand that. That would be deflating. You're not going to get it. Like roll your eyes and all this other nonsense. That's not a sign of a great leader, in my opinion.
So, and honestly, I thought of, as I'm thinking about this, it's a tough question because I'm trying to remember, but honestly, and I'm grateful for it, not to blow smoke here, but I did have a conversation with a boss who was very generous and told me up front, he's going to give me a year, but said after several months, I don't know if you're going to make it here. I don't know if you're right for this role. But it wasn't I'm doubting you. It's, I don't know yet. We'll find out in a year. And that was actually, in my mind, very good because it wasn't like day to day. It's probably 4 months in. Day to day, I was failing. And day to day, I was wondering if I had a job. It was, I'm getting a year. I have a roadmap. I have a highway here to kind of work on before I get on the off ramp. And it was just the way I was performing, the way I was interacting, and that was you. and it was probably something that, yes, as opposed to just leading me along until I probably didn't succeed or did succeed, but I don't think I would have if I didn't have that conversation, that comment, because it was, okay, I've got to, and it was, I don't know exactly how to tell you how to do what you got to do, but you've got to own this. You've got to show leadership. You've got to own it. You've got to be responsible for the successes here, and you have to be successful. I mean, it's one thing to own the failures, but you can own failures all day long and never get anywhere.
Correct, yeah.
It's like saying, I'll take responsibility. I'll take that responsibility. That's great. But at some point, you got to have results too.
Correct.
People say, I'll take responsibility. That's great. Thank you. When are you going to start doing what good?
Correct. Positive impact.
Right. So I would say that's probably the most problem that I can recall. It was short and sweet. It made me think, and I can't exactly remember what I did when I went back to the drawing board, but obviously it worked out.
It absolutely did. I recall that explicitly.
It's in your office.
And there was a marked change. And if you recall, that's when things really started flowing. The warehouse started filling up, right? I mean, seriously. And that wasn't me. That was you. That was all you.
That was and that wasn't one thing. It was that, it was like total war on my job. You know what I mean? It was, it was, and it was owning, and that's when I would get in early and I'd walk to maintenance and I'd walk to the other departments and I'd see what was coming down to that department. I mean, I was really trying to look, there were 12-hour shifts. I was trying to look 4 or 5 hours ahead into the shift.
Sure. Right.
And then looking into the next day or even planning the schedule out. I was trying to look in a few days in advance and then going back to every hour and every shift, what it took to get there. That was a mindset shift, though.
Yeah, but you see, but you cared. You heard something that probably wasn't real positive. You turned it into a positive. You turned it into a hell of a positive.
It gave me a relief to know, okay, I got a year. I got 9 more months or 8 more months. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
and then you took that and you ran with it and you did some pretty remarkable things with that.
Thank you. With a lot of support, but yeah, I mean, it was. But you had to step up.
But you did it. I mean, and that's what I want people to hear and understand. you didn't get hired and walk into a job as a VP.
No.
And I don't know if, that happens from time to time, but
even the company I'm at now, I guess I had a similar situation. It's funny. I went from one job to the next and I suffer from the same thing. I got caught up in the title of the role because it wasn't plant manager.
Okay.
So I looked at my focus like this and nobody said anything, but there was at some point, probably not an aha moment, but there was an aha transition after maybe a year and a half where it was, oh no, this is for somebody else and this one takes care of that. It's whatever comes in and out of this facility, which essentially was the only facility for the company at the time.
Right.
I have to own it. Yeah.
Right.
So even if I'm not in charge of that process, I've got to find out how am I going to influence it to the benefit of this place. That's where you get more interested in what's going on in accounting, you get more interested in what's going on in human resources, what's going on more on the reliability side and the hiring side and development side, because it's like, wow, well, it's not just make the product and ship it. I mean, that's what I was focused on.
Sure.
It just took a while to realize there's more I have to address to be successful in this role, but it took me a long time, and it took me almost to the point of resigning from that role before I realized, it is up to me. I can take the keys if I want. I just didn't know they're there for me to grab. And once I did, it was a big shift. Big shift.
Yeah. And that's interesting. I've never been. Can we talk about that for just a little bit? I mean, I know you and I are a little bit different ages, and this is something I'm seeing in the world today, and that is this. I've never really wrapped myself around the axle around titles, but in my roles, I'm learning there are a lot of people that do. And, when you have people that want a title, but aren't clear haven't demonstrated they're willing to put in the time and do the work. Mm-hmm. All right. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And what would you say to them? Because I mean, I look at you as the poster child for time and rate and effort.
Thank you.
I really do. And that's really what I want to get to is how do we get people to recognize that, one, things have to happen. There's a system. There's a sequence to things. You elicited this twice now. You talked about one career in one company, another career in another company. You did the same things, right? You put in the time. Mm-hmm. You devoted yourself with the effort, and things became successful in both career paths.
Well, I was thinking about on the way here, just reflecting, and it's like and I guess it probably goes with the sports team, probably music, the overnight success. Overnight success of 15 years.
Yes,
yeah, 10 years. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and again, I just, I'm embarrassed by my luck or fortune because the time gets put in for so long, you got, and I'm drawing probably a foot in my fingers in the air right now. Right. I mean, but there's like this much a time of effort in figuring things out and learning and applying and learning from that. And then it's almost like this snowball. It's this matchlet. Once you get, the door is cracked open, it just swings open. It's almost like things snowball very quickly. And I feel like that's me, professionally and personally. Like it just happened so fast and so quickly. But it took, almost 20 years of a career and personal life before suddenly, next thing you know, I've got I feel like a solid career. I've got a title I never thought I'd ever earn, a family I'd never have.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And that's only in the last like 4 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that was just such a quick snowball. But yeah, it took all of them we've been talking about for the last hour or so, 15 plus years post college. So, Getting wrapped up in titles. There's so many industries where you get hired in as a project manager. Next thing you know, you're an executive vice president of something.
Right.
So I think that can be risky. I remember having a conversation with
You've said this a couple of times.
and by the way, the people you're talking about was me. So I just think that's a youth thing. I know it's generational, but like I wanted this, I wanted that. I remember coming out of college with an IT degree in upstate New York, the arrogance saying, if the job is really good and it's a really good company, maybe I'll accept, $60,000-$70,000. I took 1/3 of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
well, reality sets in a bit.
yeah, reality sets in. Yeah.
Right. So let me ask you this. So for someone listening right now who feels stuck in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
Not new, not successful yet,
Mm-hmm.
what should they be building that no one will applaud?
That no one will applaud.
Yep.
That no one applauds.
Yeah.
Okay. Character.
Ooh.
I think character.
Ooh.
And I probably would not have said that any time in the last, probably maybe only recently in the last few years, but character. But that's pretty all encompassing.
That's a deep hole. Yeah, that's a.
So, but I do think it's more important than a technical skill, because I don't know who's listening to this or what they do.
Right.
I think that finding your inner conviction, your reason your drive, your why.
Correct.
Because you and I have had conversations outside of this podcast about how certainly a manager or a company or a culture or could be deflating or demotivating. But if you're going to be successful, I don't know anybody that their motivation comes from anything else from inside.
Agreed.
I mean, they have to have their own self-motivation. So you have to understand what you want to work for. And that character is not what you want to be, but how you want to be. If we're talking about strictly your professional career or your job, whatever you want to call it, because you could job hop. I mean, you could be a freelancer, but your character is how you want to be, not just what you want to be.
Correct.
The way I feel and have come to realize, and and it goes back to our faiths. Not to bring it necessarily in, but Bible's a great book on a lot of things, including leadership. But leadership, not management, leadership is about your investment and development in other people. So it is a process of humility and humbleness.
Correct.
And giving and interest in others. And it's a hand down to help somebody up, to reach down, help them up. And so it may take more time, but to move ahead on your own, it's like a quarterback, right? I mean, they when they're out of the pocket and they're getting blitzed, they can sprint and get a few yards or a first down, but that's never how they score 80 yards for that touchdown. They move the whole scrimmage forward. They move 10 other people forward. And to me, that's what, and I'm not a quarterback, I always wanted to kill the quarterback, right? Football, right? So I'm not a quarterback, but it's about helping other people forward. If that's what you want in leadership, not everyone wants to be in a leadership position, but you can be a passionate leader yourself in whatever you do. And if you determine your own values in which you're going to not compromise, in my opinion, that makes you stand out. Because whether you're a data analyst like my father, a nurse like my mother, if you're a warehouse driver, you will stand out if you put in the time and have unwavering values and are consistent.
That's right.
Reliable. People know what they're getting. There's no surprises or punches pulled. And you're persistent. because that's, there's very few people that, and I even challenge if you do find the person, the story, where persistence wasn't a key point to that. But persistence seems to always follow every success story, whether it took 50 years or 5 years or your standard 15 years. And even if somebody doesn't seem like they were the benefactor of persistence, maybe they found success early, but then 20 years later, it's like, oh, that was that guy?
Correct.
I mean, Elon Musk, do people remember he was the PayPal guy?
Right.
What is he today?
Right.
Right? I mean, that's even that. So I think those aren't skills like you learn how to code or you learn how to weld or you learn how to paint,
right.
or you're an architect. Those aren't like hard skills.
Right.
And those soft skills and that's where I think too, if you ever want to get into upper echelon of any business, it's those soft skills. Even if you're a born engineer and you excel, and I got distant family, they're engineers. When they start getting into non-engineering roles in an engineering firm, it's those soft skills that separate them from, the middle of the pack to the top of the middle of the pack to the top in the zenith.
Sure.
That's what that is. So I think to work on in private or that people won't notice immediately is character, because I think eventually they will. I know eventually they all will.
Well, and I'm glad you brought the C word into this, because you're absolutely right, and I had not. But and I don't care what role you're in, to your point, your success will be determined by the things you were just talking about the persistence, consistency, your character. And I think there's a plethora of examples that can be given.
My father, I mean, he had some great one-liners. Not one-liners, but, things they always taught me. And looking back, I realized how successful he was from where he started and where he ended. And only as an adult and as a father and as a family man now do I realize that. But he'd always say to me, and this is really in school, but it's so much more applicable than just school. It's you do everything you can so that whatever the decision at the end, whether it's a grade, a promotion, a job offer, a result of someone else, you do everything that you can to make sure nobody can take away what you gave them, so that the point is that it's out of your hands. Meaning there is nothing else you could have done to say, I earned that A, or I earned that hire, or I earned that promotion. It's someone else's choice at that point. You can let that go. Someone felt differently. Someone graded it differently. It was always you work to the point where it is in someone else's hands and it's out of your hands what the ultimate decision is, because then you've done everything you possibly can.
Right.
And to me, I think that's what you were just saying.
I've seen you live that. I've seen you live that.
And if someone feels differently, so be it. You can't control that, but
Correct.
It's not like that living of regret. Like, I could have put like 10 more hours into that.
Right.
Another hour of prep into that.
Yeah, there's no question. Right. Yeah. I've given it all.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. Is there any closing thoughts that you'd like to share before we draw this episode to a conclusion?
Dave, as you know, for a long time, and you can read this, men are very good at compartmentalizing.
Absolutely.
They box things out because that's how they address things one at a time. Because there's that debate. There really is no multitasking. You either give your attention to focus on something, or you're detracting from everything else you could do. Right.
I truly believe that as I'm getting older. Absolutely.
I agree.
Yes. But
the concept of holistic approach, and we talked about earlier, I said about habits, right? Because you can't. Eventually, everybody has a personal life, right? Whether that's a family, a marriage, a partnership, whatever it is, right? It's tough to have a bad personal life, have a great professional life, and vice versa. And so I guess that they're really not mutually exclusive. And I always
Agreed.
felt they were. And the whole concept of he or she is different outside of work than at work. Well, certainly if there's a reporting structure, a hierarchy, or someone's very professional work and they're a little more joking outside of work.
Correct.
But the person ought to be the same if they're genuine. So I guess that's double the opportunity to practice character building, because you really can't fake it in your personal life to make it honest in your professional life. And you can't be a fake professional being honest in your personal life.
You're right.
And I know that's probably not exactly the, but,
That's brilliant.
But if we're
That's
talking to
actually
18
brilliant.
to 25 or 35 year olds, all I can tell you at 44 is, if you're genuine all the way around. It's not the arena you're sitting in. It's not the audience that you're talking to. I mean, you can change you can modify the message and delivery, but if you're disingenuous in any one part, it doesn't work. So, put in the time. Nobody else knows what other people walked through. So every overnight success is probably after 15 years or more.
Correct.
Whether you're upset or in an argument or you're struggling or you're having a great time, eventually things move on. So if it's great right now, things could change to be grateful. If things are tough right now, they could be glorious in a year. So just keep that in mind and keep persevering and keep doing the right things. It'll work out one way as it should. That's all.
Paul, thank you.
Thank you.
What you just heard wasn't a success story. It was a construction story. Titles come later. Confidence comes later. Clarity comes later. What comes first is showing up when no one's watching, building habits before you build reputation, and choosing growth over comfort. The lesson is simple and demanding. You don't become who you want by wishing. You become who you want by building. So wherever you're at right now, early, midstream, tired, overlooked, or uncertain, keep laying bricks. Keep showing up. Keep becoming. This is Built, Not Wished. And your story is under construction.